So we are on day 9, solving systems of equations, 2 or more equations, including linear and quadratic. And how many solutions are there if you see a graph? So there's 16 slides, but I'm going to fly through them because there's really only 2 things you need to know to do today, and that's elimination and substitution. And you'll recognize this. Caveat at the beginning, I know we are using Desmos. We can use Desmos as a check only, not as work shown, okay? Because people are going to try and do that to me. So to solve this system of equations with elimination, you guys remember we lined up the x's and the y's and the numbers when we did elimination and we drew a bar? Does that look familiar to you? Cats can learn math too, you know. So we can't eliminate anything in these columns because nothing cancels out. The 3x and the 2x won't cancel the 4y and the y. And of course, you never try and cancel the numbers. So what I did is I took that whole bottom equation and I multiplied it by -4. Because now, instead of being y, it's going to be -4y. But don't forget, -4 times 2x is -8x, and -4 times 10 is -40. That's where people go wrong. They usually forget to do the constant in the other one. Now we have 3 things that line up, the 3x and the -8x, the 4y and the -y, and the 12 and the -40. And if I added all 3 columns, you can see the y's are eliminated. That's the whole point to elimination. One of the variables goes away. So 3x plus -8x is -5x, and 12 plus -40 is -28. And if I divided both sides by -5, I got -28/5, which those two become positive. And that's 5.6. Okay, that's half of the solution. You have to go back and plug that 5.6 into one or the other equation. And it looks to me like I chose to plug it into the bottom equation. So I said, okay, so if x is 5.6, 2 times 5.6 plus y equals 10, and I got y equals -1.2 or -6/5. I went to Desmos and I graphed both of the equations, the 2 original equations, and right there it shows me where they connect. And that is the solution we just found, but you cannot use Desmos. It even says right here, saying Desmos is not acceptable homework. You will only get one submittal for the rest of the assignments from here on out because too many of you are submitting multiple times. And I simply don't have the time to regrade things 4, 5, 6 times over until you give me what I'm asking for. So people not watching the video are going to try and use Desmos, and they're going to think they've done all their work right, and they're going to get a 0 because I'm specifically saying at the beginning of this video, do not say I did it in Desmos. That was elimination. Here's another elimination. I could have multiplied the bottom by a -2 because then the x's would cancel, but it looks like I chose to multiply it by a 3 because now the y's cancel. And there you go. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's the same process. So for elimination, if the columns line up and don't cancel, you have to multiply one or the other until you can get a variable that cancels. And here the 3y and the -3y did. So this one I said, let's use elimination because look how perfect they line up. X, y, 5, x, -y, 3. So if I add the x's, I have to write with I get 2x. If I add the y's, they go to 0. And if I add the constants, 5 and 3 is 8. So I know if I divide both sides by 2, x is going to be 4. Can you tell me what the answer is immediately without figuring out what y is? Is it A, B, C, or D? It is this one because you got a 4x. None of the others have a 4x, so we know it has to be this one. Okay, so for a multiple choice, once you know what one of the variables is, check to see if it eliminates any of the others, and it eliminated this one, and this one. So we know. Jesse, you got a party going in your house. Hi, everybody.
Well,
She just muted. She didn't want me to hear you guys. Okay, now we're going to use substitution. I told you there's only 2 things I'm teaching today, elimination and substitution. So this is that exact same equation as the previous page. You can see I used elimination here, but now I'm going to show you what substitution is. I solved this equation for x by moving the y over. So I said subtract y from both sides, I get 5 minus y. And then this y canceled. And then on this one, I added y to both sides, and I got 3 plus y. So now that I know x equals 5 minus y and x equals 3 plus y, I can take this 3 plus y, and I can plug it into this x. Or I think what I really did is I took this 5 minus y, and I plugged it into this x. So what I get is 5 minus y equals 3 plus y. That's easy to solve, and I got y equals 1. And again, if I look through here, remember I told you if you can eliminate the others? Well, the only one that has a 1y is D. And we already said on the last page that the answer was D. Okay. All right. Take a look at this system. There are 3 equations. One is a circle, one is a parabola, one is a straight line. How many, this is an easy question, how many solutions do we see here? Show your fingers, or you can talk. 2 solutions, good. Okay, I see one here where all 3 graphs cross, the yellow, the teal, and the pink, and I see one here. So there are 2 solutions. So sometimes questions are that simple. How many solutions? Just count where all the graphs cross. Notice I didn't say this place or this place because the blue graph didn't cross there. All the graphs have to cross. Okay, so what about this one? How many solutions to this one? 2? Okay, good. Here's where the green and blue cross, and here's where the green and blue cross. So again, 2. And this one is a picture where they ask you to read the solution. So you can see there, here and here, which one, A, B, C, or D, actually shows these 2 points. What do you think this point is?
It's C.
C.
It is. Boy, I got a chorus for that one. You guys are all right. It is C. Well done, you people.
I'm in pre-algebra and I'm in 5th grade. So. And I'm in 2nd grade.
You guys are amazing. You must be mathematicians in the making because you guys get this.
I'm in 2nd grade and I don't even learn about it.
Well, you're learning now. So what do we see here? How many? Identify only the apparent solution. So this would be one of those where you actually take your marking tool and you put a dot on the spot. So if I pretended I had a marking tool, I would put a dot here and a dot here. So sometimes the questions on the SOL make you actually put a point on a graph, and there's a little point maker, and you would put one here and here because that's where the 2 graphs cross. Okay, so here's how you do it when you've got a parabola. Notice that we stopped using linear equations. So one of them is a line, and I solved it for y. What I did is I moved the x over and the 10 over, and I got y equals negative x minus 10. And I also solved this one for y. So I moved the x squared over and the 2 over, and I got negative x squared plus 2. And you can see I can solve this by substitution. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, if this is y, and this is y, then the 2 of them have to equal each other. So I'm going to just stick this in this y spot. And I got negative x minus 10 equals negative x squared plus 2. And then I said, okay, let's bring it all over to one side, and now it's a quadratic. So I added the x squared, and I got a positive x squared. I kept the negative x where it was, and I subtracted 2, and I got negative 12. And now I just do a factor box, and I get x minus 4 and x plus 3. And so my 2 solutions are 4 and negative 3. And they only wanted the x values, which is a weird question. They didn't say where do they cross. So if anybody goes to Desmos and says it's negative 3, negative 7, and 4, negative 14, you would not get it right because they only wanted the x values. So they don't want the y's. They only want this part, negative 3, positive 4. So it looks like it would be B. Okay, so the thing is you have to read the question carefully. You have to make sure you're answering what they ask you for. Only the x values. Don't give me anything else. Okay. And then this one I'm solving by elimination. So this one I'm lining up. Okay, so let's see. What did I do here? It looks like what I did is I moved the y over and I got a negative y. Kept the 6 where it was and moved the x over and I got a negative x. So can you see how the y's line up? There's no other x squared except the top one, but this x pair lines up and the numbers line up. So if I add y to negative y, don't I get a 0? And then if I add x squared to nothing, I keep x squared. But if I add negative 8x to negative x, I get negative 9x. And if I add 8 to 6, I get 14. And again, I'm going to solve it like a quadratic. I'm going to factor it and set each factor equal to 0. So my factors came out to be x minus 2 and x minus 7. So x equals 2 and x equals 7. But now you have to plug both 2 and 7 into one or the other equation. It's obvious this is the easiest equation to work with. So I'm going to use y plus 6 equals x. So y plus 6 equals 2. That makes y equal to negative 4. Or y plus 6 equals 7. That gives me y equals, can't see my bar here, 1. And then again, I graphed it, and I did get these 2 points, 2, negative 4. That should say 2, negative 4. And 7, 1. Okay, but when I say solve by elimination, Desmos is a check. This is the work, this is the check. And we are almost there, guys. Again, solve by elimination. So notice that I lined up the x squareds, the y squareds, and the numbers, but nothing cancels. They're all different magnitudes. So I said, okay, let's take this bottom equation and multiply it by 12. I didn't show that very well, but if I do this and I say, let's multiply it by 12, that's 12 times x squared, 12x squared. 12 times y squared is 12y squared, and 12 times 25 is 300. Now when I add them, 24x squared and 12x squared is 36x squared. The y squareds cancel, and 300 plus 24 is 324. When you divide 324 by 36, you get 9. When you take the square root, don't forget your plus or minuses. So if you just got 3, that's only half of the solution. So x is either a positive or a negative 3. So it's obvious this was the easiest equation to go back and plug into. So I use the x squared plus y squared is 25. If you're going to square that number, it doesn't matter if I put the positive or the negative 3 in. Both of them will give me 9. And then 9 plus y squared is 25. I subtracted 9. I got y squared is 16. I took my square root, and I got a plus or minus 4. So remember, the plus or minus 3 and the plus or minus 4 are my x and y's. So you have to mix and match. So I use the positives, 3 and 4. And then I use the positive 3 with a negative 4. And then I use the negative 3 with a positive 4 and the negative 3 with a negative 4. And again, Desmos will show you all of those are correct. However, I'm not asking you to put them in Desmos, only as a check. You have to actually show me this kind of work. That's the whole point to this, is to make sure you guys understand the skills behind it, not how to use a calculator. Yes, we're done. Okay. The warm-up, you have to show your work for credit again, and that means show me elimination or substitution. And the exit ticket, same thing. And then there is a linear systems Desmos review where you don't need to show me your work. Some of you are attaching your Desmos work. I don't need to see that. So for the Desmos, it looks like this. You actually have to tell them how many solutions. Oh, who's joining us? Who is coming? It's interesting. Oh, it's Leanne. Hi, Leanne. So for Desmos, you can do this in the graphing calculator. It'll just say how many solutions, and obviously it connects at one place. But for the others, I'm telling you what I would use, but I'm not letting anybody use Desmos. You cannot use Desmos for these. So I want to see elimination for this one, just because the 2 x squares will cancel. You can see a positive and a negative x squared. I'd like to see substitution for this one. Take this x squared minus 1 and plug it into this y, and then solve. And then for here, you can use substitution in a factor box, or you can use elimination if you prefer, but I would rather use substitution. And then this one, I want you to use elimination because the y's cancel. You can see if I add a positive to a negative y, they're gone. And then I've got an x squared plus an x squared and a 3 plus a 5, and you can easily solve that. Again, I'm not taking answer keys, so people are highlighting one answer or just guessing x equals 2 and throwing it in there. And this one, by the way, should be a point, not just a single value, but a point. It should be an x and a y value. Same here, and then this one, I need to see the work. So that's it. You guys doing okay? Okay. Leanne, how about you? You cool?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done. I think this one was in record time, so I will see you guys Wednesday. Let me just tell you guys what I'm doing, because a lot of people are emailing me angry grams because they're not watching the videos or watching these or looking at my notes. But I'm not letting everybody submit more than once. So once you submitted and I tell you, sorry, you didn't do it right, or you only get points for 3 because I didn't see the other 2, then I'm done. I'm not going to accept resubmittals. It's way more work than I have ever anticipated. So get it right the first time and get it on time the first time. And a lot of you are doing that, but so many of you aren't. But all right.
Said, Miss Y, the day 8 work, it said in Google Classroom that I was due today, but you told me it was due yesterday on Google Classroom.
The thing is, I always have to open those quizzes as backup. And so when I put the quiz in there, it carried its due date with it. So I left it an extra day so that I wouldn't have to open it back up, because I knew I was going to remind everybody on Sunday night that it was due. But the exit ticket and the warm-up should have been posted in there. And then you could have done the quizzes a little bit later. I just don't want to have to reopen those quizzes. It's way more work reopening things and going through a second place to look for grades. So yeah. I gave you guys an extra day on the quizzes, but I got so many angry grams about people saying, nope, that's not when it's due tomorrow, that I thought, well, I'll never give them another extra day on the quizzes again. They're done. So that extra day, gone. But I don't see a quizzes coming up anyway. So again, I've been telling you guys, Sunday nights, everything is due Sunday midnight. And I am up at Sunday midnight listening to all these pings come in on my phone. So Sunday night of the week. Go ahead.